Blinded by his wife's manipulation, a wealthy man abandons his own daughter in the darkness of the forest. But a loyal and cunning raven, who witnessed the veiled cruelty, will not allow such injustice, seeking unexpected help to expose the dark truth and save the innocent. Arthur's luxurious SUV engine roared, shattering the oppressive silence of the forest. He didn't look back. He couldn't. His tear-filled eyes fixed on the dirt road stretching ahead, swallowing him away from that heinous act. The image of his daughter, Clara, standing beneath the dense canopy of trees, her eyes wide with panic and confusion, burned in his mind. She didn't cry, didn't scream. She just watched him go, a statue of abandonment, her small teddy bear backpack lying at her feet. "Daddy, you'll come back, won't you?" The child's voice echoed in his head, the last question she had asked before he left her under the pretext of finding a shortcut. He knew he wouldn't return. His wife, Veronica, had been clear. "If you don't get rid of her, Arthur, I'll get rid of you, and I'll take everything we have, absolutely everything." The threat, uttered with a cold smile, was a poison that corroded his soul, but which he, cowardly, accepted as his only way out. As the SUV drove away, the raven, observing everything from atop a centennial pine, didn't miss a single detail. It had seen the girl isolated, heard Veronica's whispered threats, the veiled cruelty in every gesture, and now it witnessed the abandonment. Its intelligent black eyes followed Arthur's car for a moment, before turning to Clara's diminutive figure, who was now beginning to sob, the cruel reality setting in. A distant sound broke the forest's silence, the growing hum of a heavy engine. A truck. The raven croaked, a sharp, urgent sound, and took flight, not away but towards the road, intercepting the approaching vehicle. The truck driver, a corpulent man with a grizzled beard named Zay, hummed a country tune as his old Scania cut through the road dust. Suddenly, a dark shape crossed his windshield. He braked sharply, the truck screeching and swaying. "What the devil, duck!" The raven landed on the truck's side mirror, looking at Zay with an almost human intensity. Zay frowned. He had never seen such a bold raven. The bird opened its beak, and what came out was not a croak, but a voice. A feminine voice, cold and sharp, which Zay didn't recognize, but which made his blood run cold. "You're useless, Arthur, a coward. If you don't get rid of this girl, I'll get rid of you, and I'll take everything, absolutely everything. She's a nuisance. Leave her there. No one will miss her." Zay blinked, incredulous. He looked at the raven, then at nothing. That couldn't be real. The bird repeated with the exact same intonation, the same contained fury. "Leave her there." The voice was so vivid, so full of contempt, that Zay felt a shiver down his spine. He looked at the dense forest, at the road stretching behind him. A girl. Abandoned. A few meters away, Arthur's SUV had stopped. He was about to accelerate, to flee that nightmare when the words hit him. The voice, Veronica's voice, the exact words she had used to blackmail him. He recognized every syllable, every cruel inflection. But how? How was it possible? He looked in the rearview mirror and saw the truck stopped, the raven on the truck driver's mirror, repeating his wife's threats. His blood ran cold. It wasn't a delusion. It was real. Someone or something was exposing the truth. His truth. Veronica's truth. The truck driver, Zay, now looked at the forest with an expression of horror and determination. A girl. My God, there's a child there. Arthur felt a knot in his throat. Shame, guilt, anger at Veronica, and above all, dread for Clara's safety hit him like a lightning bolt. The raven had unmasked the villain, not just to a stranger, but to himself, forcing him to confront the monstrosity of his own actions and the urgency of a rescue. Veronica's voice, echoing from a bird's beak, was the sentence of his own condemnation. He needed to go back. Now. Arthur's SUV engine, which had roared in flight moments before, now sputtered and fell silent. He was paralyzed. Veronica's words, spitting from a bird's beak, were a cruel mirror, reflecting the image of his own cowardice. The voice, so identical, so full of contempt, was not just a revelation to the truck driver. It was a cry of condemnation for himself. The knot in his throat tightened, and the air seemed to thin. "A girl! My God! There's a child there!" Zay's deep voice echoed, laden with horror and an indignation that Arthur felt in his own skin. Shame hit him first, a punch to the gut. Then guilt, heavy as an anchor, dragging him into the depths of his own moral abyss. But above all came dread. The cold, paralyzing dread for Clara's safety. His little Clara alone, defenseless in the dark and menacing vastness of the forest. "Clara," he whispered, his daughter's name a lament. Without a second thought, Arthur forcefully spun the steering wheel, making the SUV skid on the loose dirt. The car screeched in protest, but he didn't care. Reverse gear was engaged with a jolt, and the luxurious vehicle, which moments before had been carrying him away from his sin, now propelled him back to the epicenter of his monstrosity. He needed to go back, now. Zay, the truck driver, got out of the Scania with surprising agility for his build. His eyes, previously fixed on the Raven, now swept the dense green wall of the forest. The bird's voice, repeating the threat of abandonment, had planted a seed of urgency in his heart. He was a simple man, but with an unwavering sense of justice, a child abandoned in that wilderness. It was something he couldn't and wouldn't ignore. The Raven, as if understanding the urgency, took flight from the truck's rearview mirror, circling above the clearing where Arthur's SUV was now maneuvering. Its croaks, though no longer imitating Veronica's voice, were sharp and insistent, like a call. Arthur stopped the car abruptly beside Zay's truck. He opened the door and jumped out, his face pale and eyes wide. "My daughter!" he gasped, his voice choked. I left her there." Zay looked at Arthur, his grizzled beard framing an expression of disapproval, but also of shared urgency. He didn't need explanations now. The priority was the girl. Where did you leave her?" Zay asked, his voice deep and firm. Arthur pointed to the entrance of the trail leading into the forest, a few meters from where they stood. "There, right there, she had a teddy bear backpack." His voice failed, the image of Clara, small and vulnerable, burning in his mind. The Raven landed on a nearby branch, observing the two men. Its black eyes seemed to assess the situation, Zay's determination and Arthur's despair. "Let's go! We have no time to lose!" Zay exclaimed, already heading for the trail. He was a man of action, and the forest, though imposing, didn't intimidate him. Arthur followed him, stumbling over his own feet. The forest, which before had seemed a refuge for his cowardly act, now transformed into a menacing labyrinth. Every shadow, every sound seemed to hide a danger for his daughter. The cold night air that was beginning to fall brought with it a smell of damp earth and dry leaves, and darkness deepened quickly under the dense canopy of trees. Clara, meanwhile, was huddled under a pine tree, her teddy bear backpack clutched against her chest. Tears had dried on her face, replaced by a stupor of fear and confusion. The sun was beginning to set, and the forest, which during the day was just a scary place, now became a monster of shadows and unknown sounds. She had called for her father, but only the echo of her own child's voice responded. The cold was starting to bite, and hope, once a flickering flame, threatened to extinguish completely. Arthur and Zay entered the trail, Arthur's cell phone flashlight cutting through the gloom. The forest's silence was broken only by the rustle of their footsteps and the distant croaks of the Raven, which seemed to hover above them, a dark and vigilant guide. Time was crucial, and with each step, the weight of Arthur's guilt became more unbearable. He needed to find her. He had to find her. Arthur's cell phone flashlight, a pale and insufficient beam, danced over the twisted roots and damp leaves covering the forest floor. The cold night air that was settling in penetrated his thin clothes, but the chill in his chest was much deeper. Beside him, Zay advanced with silent determination, his steps firm and experienced, despite the treacherous terrain. The raven, now a dark silhouette against the rapidly darkening sky, flew in circles above them, its distant croaks punctuating the oppressive silence. "Clara!" Arthur called, his voice hoarse and choked with panic. "Clara, my love!" Only the echo, distorted by the trees, responded. Every shadow seemed to stretch, transforming into menacing shapes. The smell of wet earth and pine mixed with the metallic odor of his own fear. The forest, which before had seemed a silent accomplice to his cowardly act, now rose as an implacable judge, every branch snapping under his feet, sounding like an accusation. "No use shouting too much, young man," Zay warned, his voice deep and calm, but with a tone of urgency. "If she's scared, she might just curl up even more. Let's go slowly, looking at the ground, the thickets. A small child won't go far." Arthur nodded, swallowing hard. Zay's logic was a balm amidst his irrational despair. He tried to focus, his eyes sweeping the darkness, looking for any sign, any color that wasn't the green and brown of the forest. The teddy bear backpack, that was his beacon. She was huddled under the dense canopy of a pine tree, her teddy bear backpack clutched against her chest like a useless shield. The sun had completely disappeared, and the forest had transformed into a labyrinth of deep shadows. The cold was excruciating, penetrating her bones, and fear, once a knot in her stomach, was now a suffocating presence. She had heard her father's shouts, but the voice seemed to come from very far away, distorted and unrecognizable. She had tried to respond, but her throat was dry, and only a weak wheeze escaped. The sounds of the forest, once just a distant murmur, were now amplified by the night's silence. The rustle of leaves, the chirp of an insect, the distant howl of an animal. Everything became a threat. Silent tears streamed down her pale face, and she curled up even tighter, wishing the world would swallow her whole, that she would disappear before something found her. Hope, once a flickering flame, was now just a dying ember. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice almost inaudible, a last thread of courage unraveling. Back on the trail, Arthur tripped over an exposed root, almost falling. The image of Veronica, her cold smile and threats, flashed in his mind. "If you don't get rid of her, Arthur, I'll get rid of you, and I'll take everything we have." The raven's voice, imitating her words, resonated in his ears, a constant reminder of his cowardice. He had traded his daughter's safety for an empty marriage and a fortune that now seemed worthless. What was all the money in the world if he lost Clara? "There!" Zay exclaimed, pointing to the ground. Arthur's flashlight followed his finger. There was a small, distinct footprint in the damp earth beside a crumpled leaf. "It's hers. She came this way." A ray of hope, mixed with a sharp pain, shot through Arthur. Clara was close, but the trail quickly disappeared into the denser vegetation. The raven croaked again, louder this time, and flew to a tree further ahead, as if indicating the direction. "He's guiding us," Zay murmured, more to himself than to Arthur, a glimmer of astonishment in his eyes. "I've never seen anything like it." Arthur had no time to question. With each passing second, the danger to Clara increased. The cold, the animals, the darkness. He needed to find her before night swallowed her whole. Guilt propelled him with each step, deeper into the forest, in search of redemption. "Clara, my love." Only the echo, distorted by the trees, responded. The teddy bear backpack. That was his beacon. "It's hers. She came this way." A ray of hope, mixed with a sharp pain, shot through Arthur. Clara was close. "I've never seen anything like it." The air grew heavier, laden with a humidity that promised fog. Visibility decreased with each minute, and Arthur's cell phone flashlight seemed increasingly useless, only tearing small holes in the impenetrable darkness. "Clara, answer me, my love!" Arthur shouted again, his voice now choked with tears he could no longer hold back. He felt despair take hold of him, a cold knot in his stomach. Zay, ahead, stopped abruptly. "Did you hear that, young man?" Arthur held his breath. A faint sound, almost inaudible, broke the forest silence. It wasn't a scream nor a cry, but a muffled whimper, a child's lament that seemed to come from somewhere to the right, among the dense bushes. The raven, which had landed on a high branch, croaked once, low and urgent, and flew in that direction. "This way!" Zay exclaimed, already pushing his way through the thick vegetation. Arthur followed him, his heart pounding erratically in his chest. Every branch that scratched his face, every thorn that caught his clothes, was ignored. He could only think of Clara. That whimper. It was her. It had to be. They crawled through a small tangle of ferns and thorny bushes. The faint light of Arthur's flashlight finally revealed a small, huddled figure, almost invisible in the darkness. Clara. She was nestled in a small depression on the ground, her teddy bear backpack still clutched against her chest, eyes closed, trembling uncontrollably. Her face was pale and dirty, and small streaks of dried tears marked her cheeks. "Clara," Arthur whispered, his daughter's name a mere thread of a voice. He threw himself beside her, ignoring the cold and dampness of the ground. Zay stopped a little behind, observing the scene with a grave expression. Clara slowly opened her eyes, blinking against the flashlight's beam. For an instant, her childlike eyes were filled with pure terror, not recognizing the figure bent over her. But then, the familiar voice, though choked, reached her mind. "Daddy?" Arthur pulled her to him, hugging her with desperate force, as if wanting to merge the two into one. Clara's small body was icy cold, and she trembled violently in his arms. My love, forgive me," he murmured, kissing her hair, her face, warm tears streaming freely. "Daddy's here. Daddy came to get you." Clara didn't respond, just clung to him, her face hidden in his shoulder, sobbing softly. The fear was still there, but her father's presence was a balm, a promise that the nightmare was, perhaps, coming to an end. The raven landed on a nearby branch, observing the scene in silence, a vigilant shadow in the growing darkness of the forest. The mission was accomplished. Arthur held Clara tightly against him, feeling her tiny, icy body tremble in his arms. Her crying was a muffled sound on his shoulder, a mixture of relief and the terror that still consumed her. Arthur's tears mingled with the cold sweat on his face, and he didn't care. The outside world, the dark forest, the biting cold, everything faded into the background. Only Clara existed, alive in his arms. "Daddy, I was so scared," Clara whispered. Her voice choked, her small fingers clutching Arthur's shirt with surprising strength. "I know, my love. I know. Forgive me, please. Daddy was a fool, a coward. But I'm here now. I'll never leave you again, Clara. Never again," Arthur promised, the words coming out like a sacred oath, a pact with his own soul. He pulled her back a little to look into her eyes, which still reflected the night's dread, but now held a glimmer of recognition and a hint of hope. Zay approached, his voice deep and gentle. "She's very cold, young man. We need to get her out of here. I have a blanket in the truck and some water, and maybe some hot chocolate, if the roadside diner is still open." Arthur nodded, grateful for Zay's practicality. He stood up with Clara in his arms, feeling her light weight, but the weight of his guilt was crushing. "You're right, Zay. Thank you very much. I don't know how to thank you." "No need to thank me, young man. I did what was right," Zay replied, his eyes fixed on the girl. "But what happened here wasn't right. No child deserves that." Zay's words hit Arthur like a punch. He looked away, ashamed. "I know. It's a long story." My wife, Veronica. She blackmailed me. She threatened to leave me, take everything, and get rid of Clara no matter what if I didn't do it. I was weak, Zay. I was a monster. The raven, observing from the branch, croaked again, a hoarse sound that seemed to carry the same intonation as Veronica's threats. And I'll take everything we have. The voice, terrifyingly identical to Veronica's, echoed through the forest, making Clara shrink even further into her father's arms. Arthur shivered, feeling a chill down his spine. It was as if the forest itself was judging him, reminding him of the voice that had led him to commit such an atrocity. He's imitating her voice again, Arthur murmured, his eyes wide, looking at the raven. That's how he warned me, how he made me come back. Zay observed the bird with a mixture of fascination and apprehension. I've never seen anything like it. This creature. It has a purpose. He does. He saved my daughter, Arthur affirmed, his voice choked. He held Clara tightly again, feeling the faint warmth that was beginning to emanate from her. A sign that life was flowing back into her. Let's go, Zay. We need to get out of here. The journey back was slower, but laden with a new kind of urgency. Arthur held Clara firmly, protecting her from roots and branches. She was exhausted, but with each step, the feeling of security in her father seemed to grow. Her crying had diminished to occasional sobs, and she occasionally lifted her head to look at Arthur, as if to make sure he was still there. The raven flew ahead, a dark silhouette that seemed to light the way, stopping on lower branches, waiting for them, and then moving on. It was a silent guide, a winged guardian. When they finally spotted the faint light of Zay's truck through the trees, a sigh of relief escaped Arthur's lips. The forest, which before had been a labyrinth of guilt and despair, now seemed merely an obstacle overcome. The priority was Clara, her health, her safety, and then he would face Veronica. That empty marriage, that worthless fortune, none of it mattered anymore. The only thing that mattered was the small life he held in his arms. Redemption began now. Zay opened the truck door, turning on the interior light. Come in, let's warm this girl up. Arthur got in with Clara, nestling her in the passenger seat. The truck's warmth was a welcome embrace. Clara curled up, but a small yawn escaped her lips. She was exhausted, but safe. Arthur looked at Zay, his eyes filled with a gratitude that words couldn't express. The truck driver just nodded, a soft smile on his face. Outside, the raven croaked one last time, a sound that seemed like a farewell, and took flight into the night's darkness, disappearing among the treetops. Its mission was, indeed, accomplished. The truck's warmth was a balm for Clara. Arthur nestled her in the passenger seat, wrapping her in the blanket Zay quickly retrieved from behind the seat. The rough, yet warm, fabric was a welcome contrast to the damp cold of the forest. Clara curled up, small shivers still running through her body, but the warmth was beginning to penetrate. A faint yawn escaped her lips, and she closed her eyes, exhausted. Arthur watched her, his heart still tight with guilt, but now also flooded with overwhelming relief. He kissed his daughter's dirty forehead, smelling the earth and dampness in her hair. "You're safe now, my love," he whispered, more to himself than to her. Zay sat behind the wheel, starting the engine. The soft rumble filled the silence, a melody of normalcy after the forest's chaos. He grabbed a thermos and a plastic cup. "Here, young man, warm water helps warm you from the inside." Arthur took the cup, grateful. "Thank you, Zay, for everything." "You're welcome," Zay replied, his eyes on the rearview mirror, checking the dirt road before engaging the gear. "Now, we need to take her to a safe place, and warm." As the truck began to move slowly, Arthur tried to give Clara some water. She took a small, difficult sip, then snuggled deeper into the blanket, falling into a deep and well-deserved sleep. Arthur held her tight, feeling the soft rhythm of her breathing against his chest. It was a sound he feared he would never hear again. The dirt road turned into asphalt, and the distant lights of a small town began to appear on the horizon. The silence in the truck was heavy, but not uncomfortable. Arthur felt the need to speak, to unburden himself, to understand what had led him to such a heinous act. "Zay," he began, his voice hoarse, "I can't understand how I could have been so blind, so weak." Zay kept his eyes on the road. "Ambition and fear, young man, they are potent poisons. Your wife, she knew where to press." Arthur nodded, Veronica's cold image surfacing in his mind. She was always like that, manipulative, but I let myself be swayed by money, by status. I traded my daughter for an illusion. He held Clara even tighter. "I'm a monster." "No, young man," Zay interjected, his voice firm. "A monster wouldn't come back. A monster wouldn't cry for his daughter. You made a terrible mistake, yes, but what matters is what you do now." Zay's words were an unexpected balm. Arthur looked at the dark landscape passing by the window, the trees transforming into lampposts. "I'm going to fix this, Zay. I swear I'm going to confront Veronica. She won't manipulate me anymore. She won't threaten Clara anymore." A cold, determined anger began to ignite in Arthur's chest, replacing the paralyzing guilt. It was a different kind of anger than Veronica used to control him. It was a righteous anger, driven by love and the need to protect. "And the raven," Arthur murmured, remembering the creature that had guided them. He saved me. He warned you. He imitated her voice. How is that possible?" Zay shrugged. "Some things have no explanation, young man, but what matters is that he was there, an angel with dark feathers." Arthur smiled faintly. "An angel, yes. He made me see the truth about Veronica, about myself." They arrived at the roadside diner Zay had mentioned. It was a simple place, with flickering neon lights and a few parked trucks. Zay parked his. "Here we can really warm Clara up, and you can call someone maybe. Your family?" Arthur shook his head. "I have no one else, Zay, only Clara. And now, you." He looked at the truck driver, deep gratitude in his eyes. "You're the only person who truly helped me." Zay opened the truck door. "Let's go. First, the girl." Arthur carefully picked up Clara, the blanket wrapped around her. She was still sleeping deeply, her face serene now that she was safe. As he got out of the truck, Arthur looked at the night sky, searching for the raven's silhouette. There was no sign of it, but the memory of its croak, of Veronica's voice, still echoed in his mind, a constant reminder of what he needed to do. Redemption wasn't just finding Clara. It was rebuilding their lives, away from the shadow of manipulation and cruelty, and he was ready to begin. The warm, stuffy air of the roadside diner was a welcome shock after the biting cold of the night. Neon lights flickered, casting a reddish glow over the formica tables and upholstered booths. The smell of fresh coffee and frying food hung in the air, an aroma of normalcy that seemed almost surreal to Arthur. He entered with Clara nestled in his arms, Zay's blanket enveloping her like a protective cocoon. She was still sleeping deeply, her face pale and serene, oblivious to the soft hum of the place. Zay, with his calm and imposing presence, opened the door for them and indicated a table further away, in a corner. "Here, young man." More peaceful for her. Arthur sat down, carefully adjusting Clara on his lap, making sure she was comfortable and warm. He felt the warmth of her body, her soft breathing against his chest, and a wave of emotions hit him. Relief, love, and a persistent pang of shame. A middle-aged waitress with a tired but gentle smile approached. "Good evening. What can I get for you?" Zay interjected before Arthur could respond. "Good evening. For the girl, a very sweet hot chocolate, please. And for us, 2 black coffees, and maybe some toast for her if you have any." The waitress nodded, casting a sympathetic glance at Clara. Of course, I'll bring it right away." As they waited, Arthur looked at Zay. "You thought of everything, Zay. I can barely think." "It's what we do on the road, young man. You learn to manage," Zay replied, his eyes fixed on Clara. "She'll be fine. She just needs warmth and rest." The hot chocolate arrived first, steaming and inviting. Arthur, with Zay's help, managed to get Clara to drink a few sips. She grumbled a little, opened her eyes for an instant, a glimpse of confusion in her gaze, and then fell back asleep, the warmth of the liquid seeming to calm her even more. Arthur held his coffee cup, the warmth spreading through his hands. That moment of peace, however fragile, was a gift. But the quietude also made space for darker thoughts to return. "I need to do something, Zay," Arthur said, his voice low and hoarse. "I can't go back to that house, to that life. Not with her, not with Veronica." Zay took a sip of his coffee. "And what are you going to do? She has power, doesn't she?" Arthur nodded, his jaw clenched. "She does. Money, influence, and a talent for manipulation that I underestimated for years. But no more. I won't be the coward she turned me into anymore." The anger he had felt in the forest, that cold and determined anger, now solidified. It wasn't a fit of rage, but a cold, unshakable resolution. "I'm going to confront her," Arthur continued, looking at Clara. "I'm going to take Clara away from her, from all of this, no matter what it costs." "And what will it cost?" Zay asked, his voice without judgment, just practical curiosity. "Everything, probably," Arthur admitted, a bitter smile on his lips. "My fortune, my reputation. But none of that matters. I almost lost the only thing truly worthwhile. I traded my daughter for a sandcastle. I won't make the same mistake again." He thought of the raven, its voice identical to Veronica's, the repeated threats. It was such a brutal shock of reality that it broke through the fog of fear and ambition that blinded him. The raven didn't just warn him, it humiliated him, exposed him to his own weakness, and forced him to see the truth. "That raven," Arthur murmured. "He didn't just save me. He woke me up. He showed me the monster I was becoming, and the monster she is." Zay just nodded. "Sometimes the truth comes from where you least expect it, from an animal, from a stranger on the road." "You're not a stranger, Zay. You are. You're the only person who truly helped me," Arthur reiterated, the gratitude in his eyes deep. "I have no family to call. I have no real friends, only associates who care about my money. I'm alone in this with Clara." "No, you're not," Zay replied, with a firmness that surprised Arthur. "You have the girl, and you have yourself, and now you have a plan. That's a pretty good start." Arthur looked at Clara, who was sleeping peacefully in his arms. The small figure, so fragile and innocent, was his compass, his strength. He couldn't fail her again. Redemption wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to fight. He was ready to rebuild brick by brick, a life where Clara's love and safety were the only foundation. "Thank you, Zay," Arthur said, his voice choked. "Thank you for showing me that there's still hope." Zay just smiled, a warm and genuine smile. "Now let's let this girl rest a little more. Then we'll think about the next step, one at a time." Arthur nodded, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. The road ahead would be arduous, but for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel completely lost. He had Clara, and he had a new and unshakable determination. The battle against Veronica and his own past was just beginning, but Arthur knew that this time he would fight with all his might. Arthur watched Clara sleep, her chest rising and falling at a tranquil pace, and felt a pang of guilt that mingled with his new and fierce determination. The diner, with its muffled hum and the smell of food, was a temporary refuge, but the reality of the impending battle couldn't be ignored. "Zay, I can't just go home. Arthur said, his voice low so as not to wake Clara. Veronica will try to destroy me, and worse, she'll try to use Clara against me again. Zay took a sip of his coffee, his eyes scanning the room before settling on Arthur. She has a lot to lose if you speak up, young man, and you have the truth on your side. But the truth sometimes needs help to be heard. I know, she has lawyers, influence, my family's money. Everything I built, she can use to discredit me, to make me seem like the madman, the irresponsible father. Arthur tightened his grip on the coffee cup, the cold anger in his chest intensifying. But I won't let her, not this time. And what do you plan to do first? Zay asked, his voice calm but incisive. You can't go straight into the fight without a plan for the girl. She's the priority. Arthur looked at Clara, the small figure so vulnerable in his arms. Zay was right. Her safety came before any confrontation. I need a safe place for her, away from all of this, a place where Veronica can't find her, where she can recover. He thought of all the properties he owned, all the places Veronica knew. None seemed safe enough. I have no one to trust, no one who isn't connected to my business, to my life with Veronica. Zay pondered for a moment. Look, young man, I'm not a man of many resources, but I know people who live on the fringes, who don't ask questions. Maybe I can arrange a place for Clara for a while, a family home in some remote village, where she can have a bit of normalcy without anyone knowing who she is or where she came from. Arthur's eyes widened. It was a risky idea, but the only one that seemed viable at the moment. Would you do that, Zay? For us? I don't leave anyone on the road, young man, and this girl needs a safe harbor. It's the least I can do. Zay made a gesture with his hand. But it can't be forever. You'll need a long-term plan, and for that you'll need proof. Proof, Arthur murmured, his mind racing. The Raven. He imitated her voice. He repeated the threats, if someone had recorded it. But who would believe a Raven? The story would sound insane. No one would believe me. She's a master at turning the situation around. She'd make it seem like I'm delusional, that I invented everything to get rid of her. Maybe the Raven doesn't have to be the main proof, Zay suggested. She must have left traces, messages, emails, witnesses, people she manipulated, people she threatened. Think about who she's already harmed. Arthur thought of Veronica, of her web of lies and blackmail. She was meticulous, but ambition sometimes made her careless. She was always careful. But yes, there are people she pushed away from me, people she used. I need to find them. I need a lawyer who isn't afraid of her, who can't be bought. That will be expensive, young man, and it will take time, Zay warned. I have money, or I did. She must be trying to block everything now, Arthur said, his jaw clenched. But I have access to some accounts, some investments she doesn't know about. I'm going to use every cent to protect Clara and to expose Veronica. The waitress returned with the toast, placing it gently on the table. Arthur thanked her with a nod, his eyes still fixed on Clara. He knew the road would be long and winding, but the image of Clara, sleeping peacefully, was his fuel. So, the first step is Clara's safety, Arthur concluded, his voice firm. Then I'll go after everything she took from me. Not the money, not the status, but the truth and peace for my daughter. Zay nodded, a glimmer of approval in his eyes. Sounds like a good start, young man. The road is long, but the first step is always the most important. Arthur felt a momentary relief, a sense of renewed purpose. He had a plan, albeit rudimentary. He had Zay, an unexpected and loyal ally, and he had Clara, the reason for his fight. The battle against Veronica was just beginning, but Arthur was no longer the blind and manipulated man. He was a wounded, but determined father, ready to fight with all his might to protect his daughter and rebuild the life Veronica tried to destroy. I know, but I won't let her, not this time. She's the priority. Zay was right. Away from all of this. Look, young man, trusting a stranger with his daughter's safety was something the old Arthur would never have considered. But the Arthur of now, stripped of his arrogance and privileges, saw in Zay the only hope. Would you do that, Zay? For us? The Raven. He imitated her voice. He repeated the threats. The story would sound insane. But yes, there are people. I need to find them. And time, Zay warned. I have money, or I did, and to expose Veronica. But the truth, the smell of coffee and grease from the diner, once comforting, now seemed a reminder of the precariousness of his situation. Clara was still sleeping, oblivious to the whirlwind of decisions her father was making. Arthur held her a little tighter, feeling the warmth of her small body. I'm going to make some calls, Zay said, standing up. I have a friend, an old road companion, who has a sister living on a very isolated farm. Good, trustworthy people. They can look after her for a while. Arthur nodded, his throat tight. Trusting his daughter to complete strangers was a leap in the dark, but the alternative, taking her back to Veronica's imminent danger, was unthinkable. Zay moved to a more secluded corner, dialing an old number on his robust cell phone. Arthur watched him, anxiety growing with each muffled word Zay uttered. It was a risk, but the faith Zay inspired was a balm for his tormented soul. Minutes later, Zay returned, a discreet smile on his face. It's arranged. Donna Rosa and her husband, Joan. They have grandchildren Clara's age. The place is simple but safe. No one will ask questions. They'll be waiting for her late this afternoon, at the entrance to the village of São Gonçalo. It's about 2 hours from here. Arthur felt a mix of gratitude and dread. Thank you, Zay. No need. Just take care of this girl, Zay replied, his eyes fixed on Clara. As if sensing the shift in energy, Clara began to stir in Arthur's arms. Her large brown eyes slowly opened, blinking against the diner's soft light. She looked at Arthur, then at Zay, and a small smile appeared on her lips. Daddy, she murmured, her voice still sleepy. Hi, my love, Arthur replied, kissing the top of her head. Did you sleep well? Clara nodded, rubbing her eyes. Where are we? Arthur took a deep breath. The hardest part was yet to come. We're in a safe place, my angel. But we need to go to an even safer place for you, a place where you'll stay with very kind people for a little while I sort some things out. Clara's smile wavered. I'm not going with you. The question hit Arthur like a blow. He felt the pain of separation, even before it happened. You will, my love. But not now. I need to go solve a very big problem and I can't take you with me. But I promise I'll come back for you and we'll be together forever. Clara's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. She was a strong girl, stronger than he ever imagined. But I want to stay with you. I know, my love, and I want you to stay with me more than anything, Arthur said, his voice choked. But you need to be safe, and this place, it's the best for you right now. You'll play with other children, you'll have a real home with a garden, and I'll come get you as soon as I can. He took her small hand, kissing it. Do you trust me? Clara looked at him, the innocence in her eyes weighing on Arthur's heart. She nodded slowly. I trust you, Daddy. Those words were a balm and a knife. He was asking her for a sacrifice, a separation, for a mistake he had made, but her trust was also his strength. So, let's eat something and then Zay will take us there, Arthur said, trying to sound as normal as possible. He took the toast the waitress had brought, offering a piece to Clara. While Clara ate, Arthur and Zay discussed the travel details. Zay explained the route, the landmarks. Arthur, his mind already focused on the next stage of his plan, began to think of names. The people Veronica had pushed away, the businesses she had sabotaged. He needed a starting point. Zay, do you have a phone I can use? I need to make some calls that can't be traced to my number. Zay nodded, handing him a simple prepaid cell phone. Use it wisely, young man, and be careful. She won't stop until she sees you destroyed. Arthur took the device, feeling the weight of responsibility. He was no longer the man Veronica manipulated. He was a father on a mission, and the first mission was to ensure Clara was safe, even if it meant a painful temporary separation. The road ahead was uncertain, but Arthur had a new purpose, forged in pain and guilt, but fueled by an unwavering love for his daughter. Good, trustworthy people. They can look after her for a while. Arthur nodded, his throat tight. It's arranged. It's about 2 hours from here. Arthur felt a mix of gratitude and dread. Thank you, Zay. I don't know how to thank you. No need. Did you sleep well? Clara nodded, rubbing her eyes. Where are we? Arthur took a deep breath. A place where you'll stay with very kind people for a little while I sort some things out. Clara's smile wavered. I'm not going with you? The question hit Arthur like a blow. You will, my love, but not now, and we'll be together forever. Clara's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. But I want to stay with you. I know, my love, and this place, and I'll come get you as soon as I can. He took her small hand, kissing it. Do you trust me? Clara looked at him, the innocence in her eyes weighing on Arthur's heart. She nodded slowly. I trust you, Daddy. Those words were a balm and a knife. I need to make some calls that can't be traced to my number. Zay nodded, handing him a simple prepaid cell phone. Use it wisely, young man. And be careful. She won't stop until she sees you destroyed. Arthur took the device, feeling the weight of responsibility. The drive to San Gonzalo was silent, punctuated only by the truck's engine and Arthur's heavy thoughts. Clara, sitting between him and Zay, looked out the window, the rural landscape passing by like a blur. She asked no more questions, but her quietness was more painful than any crying. Arthur hugged her occasionally, kissing her hair, trying to convey all the love and security he felt, even as he was about to leave her. They arrived at the village entrance late in the afternoon, as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. An old pickup truck was parked beside a barbed wire fence. 2 elderly people, a man and a woman with faces marked by time and sun, waited beside the vehicle. Donna Rosa had a gentle smile and warm eyes, while João, her husband, seemed more reserved, but equally welcoming. Zay got out first, greeting them with a hug. Rosa, João, these are Arthur and little Clara. Arthur got out of the truck, holding Clara firmly by the hand. His heart pounded. Donna Rosa, Seu João, thank you so much for this. I don't know how to express my gratitude. Donna Rosa approached, crouching down to Clara's height. Oh, my son, no need to thank us. A child is always welcome. Our grandchildren will love having a new friend. She extended her hand to Clara, who took it with a little hesitation. Arthur knelt, facing his daughter. Clara's eyes were fixed on his, a mixture of fear and trust. My love, you'll stay with Donna Rosa and Seu João. They are very good people. You'll have a beautiful room. You'll play in the garden. You'll eat delicious things. He tried to keep his voice steady, but felt a knot in his throat. I'll miss you so much, my angel, and when I come back we'll have the happiest life in the world, just the 2 of us. He hugged her tightly, smelling her hair, engraving every detail of that moment. Be strong, my love. And don't forget, Daddy loves you more than anything. Clara hugged him back with the strength of her small arms. I love you too, Daddy. She pulled away from the hug and looked at Donna Rosa, who waited for her with a smile. Arthur watched her take the elderly woman's hand, a small step towards the unknown, but a necessary step for her safety. Please take good care of her, Arthur asked Donna Rosa, his voice choked. You can count on it, my son. She'll be safe with us, the woman assured, and Arthur saw the sincerity in her eyes. As Donna Rosa and Joan led Clara to the pickup truck, Arthur felt an immense emptiness. He watched the vehicle drive away down the dirt road, taking with it the most precious part of his life. A solitary tear rolled down his face. Zay placed a hand on his shoulder. She'll be fine, young man. Now, your work begins. Arthur nodded, wiping the tear with the palm of his hand. The pain of separation was excruciating, but the image of Clara, safe with kind people, was the fuel he needed. Back in Zay's truck, Arthur picked up the prepaid cell phone. It was time to act. He needed a name, a starting point. He thought of Mario, his former accountant, an upright man whom Veronica had forced to resign under false accusations. Mario knew too much, and Veronica feared him. Arthur dialed the number, his hand trembling slightly. The battle against Veronica had truly begun. The drive back in Zay's truck was a blur of silence and pain for Arthur. The emptiness in the seat beside him, where Clara had been minutes before, was a hole in his chest. Every curve of the dirt road seemed to take his daughter further away, and the image of her trusting eyes, even filled with tears, hammered at his conscience. He had promised to return, and that promise was now the only pillar holding him up. Zay, sensing the man's anguish, remained silent, just driving with the calm of someone who had seen many storms. The sun had already completely set, and the darkness of the rural night swallowed the landscape. The truck's cabin, lit only by the dashboard, seemed a temporary refuge, a limbo between the pain of separation and the imminent battle. Arthur picked up the prepaid cell phone, feeling the cold plastic in his hand. It was a simple object, but it carried the weight of a new beginning. He needed a starting point, and Mario, his former accountant, was the name that resonated in his mind. Mario was a man of principles, forced to resign by Veronica under false accusations, precisely because he knew too much about her financial maneuvers and the web of lies she wove. With a trembling thumb, Arthur dialed the number he, by luck, still remembered. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Each ring was a hammer in his head, anxiety growing. Would Mario answer? Would he listen? Hello? A hoarse, suspicious voice answered from the other end. It was Mario. Mario, it's Arthur, he said, his voice more choked than he expected. There was a heavy silence on the other end of the line. Arthur could almost feel the former accountant's surprise and caution. Arthur, where are you? How did you get my number? I thought you had disappeared. Mario's voice carried a mixture of astonishment and resentment. I can't explain everything now, Mario, but I need your help. It's about Veronica. Arthur began, trying to stay calm. Veronica, what do you want? She ruined me, Arthur, made me look like a thief and incompetent, and you did nothing to defend me. You let her do whatever she wanted. The anger in Mario's voice was palpable. I know, Mario, and I'm sorry. I was a fool, blind. I was manipulated by her in a way you can't imagine. But I woke up, and now I'm fighting against her, not just for myself, but for everything she destroyed. And I need your help to prove the things she did. Arthur felt the words come out like a confession, a plea. Another silence. This time it seemed more thoughtful. Fight against Veronica. You don't know who you're dealing with. Arthur, she's dangerous. She has eyes and ears everywhere. I know she is, but I have nothing left to lose, Mario. She took everything from me. almost made me lose the most important thing in my life. I need to expose the truth, and you're the only person who can help me start." Arthur paused, taking a deep breath. "I know I failed you. I was a coward. But I've changed. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to right my wrongs and bring justice." Mario's voice softened a little. "What do you want, Arthur?" "I need everything you know. The names of the people she pushed away, the businesses she sabotaged, the financial irregularities, anything that can give me a clue, a starting point to build a case against her. I know you kept documents, Mario. You were always a cautious man." There was a long sigh on the other end. I did keep some things, yes. I didn't trust her. But it's risky, Arthur. If she finds out I'm helping you, she won't. I'm using a phone that can't be traced, and I won't expose you. I just need the information. Please, Mario, think of all the people she harmed. Think of justice." Zay, who had been listening to the conversation in silence, gave Arthur an encouraging nod. Finally, Mario spoke, his voice still cautious, but with a tone of resignation. "All right, Arthur, I'll help you. But you owe me big time. And if she finds out, you'll have to protect me." "I promise, Mario, I promise. Where can we meet? Or how can I get access to these documents?" "Meet? It's too dangerous. I'll give you an encrypted email address. Create a new account with a fake name. I'll send you what I have, but it will take some time to organize everything, and you need to be discreet, very discreet." Arthur felt immense relief, mixed with the tension of the task ahead. "Thank you, Mario. Truly, I'll never forget this. Just don't disappoint me again, Arthur, and be careful. She doesn't play fair." Mario dictated a complex email address and a temporary password, instructing Arthur on how to proceed. After hanging up, Arthur looked at Zay, a mix of exhaustion and determination in his eyes. "He's going to help me. It's a start." Zay nodded. "A good start, young man. But as he said, she doesn't play fair. The battle has just begun." Arthur clutched the cell phone in his hand. The pain of Clara's separation was still there, a knot in his throat, but now there was a clear purpose. He was no longer the cowardly and manipulated man. He was a father on a mission, and the first piece of the puzzle was in his hands. The darkness outside no longer scared him. He was ready to face his own. Arthur clutched the cell phone in his hand, feeling the residual warmth of the conversation with Mario. The pain of Clara's separation was still there, a tight knot in his throat. But now there was a clear purpose, a flame ignited in his chest. Zay, who had remained silent, broke the quietness of the cabin. "He's going to help you, young man. It's a good start." Arthur nodded, his voice still hoarse. "He's a good man, Zay. He was just hurt. I deserved his anger." "We make mistakes, young man. What matters is what we do after realizing the mistake," Zay replied, his eyes fixed on the road lit by the headlights. "But as he said, she doesn't play fair. This battle is going to be dirty." "I know," Arthur murmured, looking out the window at the rapidly passing night landscape. The dark trees seemed like silent sentinels, witnesses to his new journey. "But I have nothing left to lose. She took everything from me. She almost took Clara from me. Now she's going to pay." The journey continued in a heavy silence. Arthur mentally replayed the conversation with Mario, the warnings, the caution. The image of Veronica with her calculating smile and cold eyes haunted his thoughts. She was a predator, and he, for a long time, had been her prey. But no more. With each kilometer that took him further from Donna Rosa and Sojuan's house, Arthur felt a layer of his old life shedding. He was becoming someone else, stronger, more determined. "Where do you want me to drop you off, young man?" Zay asked after a while, breaking the silence. "You can't go back to your house. She'll be waiting for you." "I know. I need a discreet place for now. A roadside motel, perhaps, where I can create this email account and wait for Mario." Arthur thought quickly. It can be in some small town, far from everything. The more anonymous, the better. Zay nodded. I know a place. A simple motel, about 50 kilometers from here. No one will look for you there. They arrived at the motel around midnight. It was a modest place with flickering neon lights and a faded sign. Arthur paid in cash, using what Zay had lent him, and took the key to a room at the back. Anything, call me young man, Zay said, handing him a card with his number. And be careful, she has eyes everywhere. Thank you, Zay, for everything, Arthur said, genuine gratitude in his voice. In the room, Arthur threw the small backpack on the floor and sat on the edge of the bed. The silence of the place was almost deafening, broken only by the hum of the air conditioner. He picked up the prepaid cell phone again. It was time to take the first concrete step. With Mario's instructions in mind, Arthur began to create the encrypted email account. He chose an obscure provider, following the security tips Mario had given. Every click, every character typed was done with almost surgical precision. He invented a complex username and password with no connection to his real identity. There was no room for error. With each step, he felt adrenaline pump through his veins. It wasn't just an email account, it was the gateway to his revenge, to his redemption. When the account was finally created, Arthur took a deep breath. He typed Mario's address, checking every letter. The message was short and direct. Subject, confirmation. Mario, I received the address. I'm ready, awaiting your information. Be careful. He clicked send. The small envelope icon disappeared, taking with it the first seed of his war. A feeling of vulnerability and power mingled in his chest. He had exposed himself, but he had also struck the first blow. Arthur turned off the cell phone and placed it on the nightstand. He lay on the bed, looking at the dark ceiling. The image of Clara, with her eyes full of trust and her tight embrace, filled his mind. I promised my love, he whispered into the emptiness of the room. And I will keep it. The night would be long. The wait for Mario would be agonizing, but Arthur knew he was no longer alone. He had Mario, he had Zay, and above all, he had his promise to Clara. The battle had begun, and he was ready to fight until the end.